you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Okay, top of the morning, and good morning to everybody. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
All righty. Our producers are on the line. The Gatewood Brothers, Moon Pie, just checked in. And Be Good is here. And KJNI 3577's in the house. And the people that normally check on us, they just checked in. I think they check on us in a negative way, but that's okay as long as we are telling the truth. It doesn't matter. But good morning to the world, and welcome to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and me as your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Welcome this morning. The number to get in contact with the show is 516-453-9921. And be sure to give the call screener your name, please, so that I can properly introduce you. And then you will go to the top of the line, and we can go from there. Also, if you'd like to Gmail me, you may, but bear in mind, and I say this every week, and it's true, that I may not get to your Gmail this day. I probably will not, because there are many that are ahead of you, but we are efforting to reduce that as much as possible. In other words, reread them before they are automatically deleted, so we will try to get to that. But the callers come first, so thank you again. You can do that. So again, welcome. All righty. I understand that the issue that we had last week is worked out very well. I'm coming in loud and clear. One of the chat room people are telling me, so that's a good note. That's a good note. Okay. Before we get started here, there are new people that are joining the show all of the time, and some are familiar with it. But as I was going over today's show, I decided to open up with a very familiar thing that Mr. Fuller says every single week or every single show that he and I have done together. He has made this statement. And the reason why I'm making it or reading it right now is because I think, based on the calls and Gmails I get, that I think that it is overlooked, but it is one of the most powerful statements in the whole world. That is my opinion, just one of them. And it is simply this: if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, Mr. Fuller, I believe, wrote this statement back in 1971. At least that's what it says here in the book. Think how many years ago that was. And it's still ringing true today. But it is not a statement that we should overlook. Mr. Fuller, before we get deep into today's show, when you coined this or wrote this, you said, quote, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, then you said what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Mr. Fuller, for those who are new to the program, new to the format, or maybe just want to understand what's going on, can you explain to them what you meant and what you mean by that most powerful statement?
Yes. That's the thing that in my mind, in my own mind, and from my observation, that I concluded when I started writing what I'm writing, the textbook for victims of white supremacy. I came to the conclusion of everything I'd ever seen, everything I've ever heard, added up to that. I wasn't looking for that type of analysis, but everything that I touched, everything that I heard about, everything that people told me about, every experience that people were having, whether the people were white or non-white, it added up to there's a system in place here, a whole world system. I mean, and everybody is caught up in it. Everybody. No exceptions. I mean, everybody's just drowning in it, or benefiting from it, or doing both simultaneously. And I said it's a world government, and put it in capital letters, the system of white supremacy. So I coined that term, that phrase, and I put it in I first put it into the 1984 edition of the textbook for victims of white supremacy. And since then, I put it in bold print in the Word Guide, Compensatory Counter-Racist Word Guide, and in the updated version of the 1984 version of the textbook, workbook for victims of white supremacy, and put it on a separate page in both of the volumes, the 2010 volume, Word Guide, and the updated version of the 1984 edition, 2016, I put it on a separate page because I don't want people to miss that. That's the premise. You start off with that premise. Now, there are many people who say, oh, this thing called white supremacy, it doesn't even exist. That's just a slogan. That's something that people made up. Or other people who say, oh, yeah, this thing, called white supremacy is not really real. It's just something that's in a few white people's minds. And they go around saying that that's what they are. That's not really what they are. They're just trying to build their egos up. And so it was a lot of different type of approaches or reactions to that statement, the system of white supremacy. That's a statement. It's also, in my opinion, the only real government on the entire planet. It's the dominant government. It dominates everybody's thinking. And what is the essence of that government? Dominating and mistreating people based on the color of their skin, fundamentally. By whom? By people who classify themselves as white, and they teach other people that that is the best way to get things done throughout the entire planet in all 9 areas of activity, having a color system, a hierarchy called white supremacy, with white being the dominating color, and all of the people of other colors, so-called colored peoples or people of color, and principally black people, as the real solid foundation for the operation, and in all 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And that everybody is going to come under that system or be practitioners of the system itself. Everybody's going to be supporting the system, directly, indirectly. in all of those areas of activity. And it's already been done. It's a done deal a long time ago. I don't know when it was actually completed, but the architects of it started off apparently many, many, many hundreds, some people say a few thousand years ago. And that's been completed. That's a done deal. Okay. So I just capsulized the operation in that one statement. And that statement is either true or false.
Yes.
But I say it's true. And all of the evidence points to that. It's the most powerful political and religious government that the world has ever experienced. There's no government, no religious government, no political government, or anything that even has a semblance of a government more powerful than, in capital letters, the system of white supremacy and racism.
Okay.
And that's how I came, that's the conclusion I came to.
Yes, sir. Okay. Listen, everybody, here's the number again, 516-453-9921. And make sure that when you call that number, when the call screener speaks with you, please, ma'am, please, sir, please give your name. Okay, thank you very much. You've done that so that I can properly introduce you. And with that being said, now if I don't mess it up, Sahela, I think that is, let me see, and correct me if I'm wrong. Let me get you in here. See, you can be heard worldwide. Is it Sahela or Sahala?
You got it right the first time, Sahela.
Okay, Sahela. Go ahead. Thank you for calling. Go ahead.
I love the show. I love Mr. Fuller, and I hope he lives forever. I love the talks, and I do have a problem with the books. I gifted one to a loved one, and he has not received it yet. It's been about 2 or 3 months, 2 months. So I'm wondering if there's an issue with the mailing of the books.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, there has been. I've gotten several reports on that.
Oh, my God. And this person, he's incarcerated, and the book is going around as far as it being a good read, so he's anxious to get it. So I gifted him a copy. I have my own copy, by the way. And I figured I'd send him a copy. So he still hasn't received it.
He's incarcerated?
Yes, in Rahway.
Well, definitely there's going to be, most likely, and I'm saying this for the other listeners too. If you send a book to some of the penitentiaries, some of the people in what the textbook calls greater confinement, there might be a delay. And I have received letters sometimes from the officials at various institutions, corrective institutions, yes, whom they say because of the content of the material. Now, this hasn't happened often, but evidently they examine the content of the material and they delay the person receiving the book.
I don't think that's the case here because there's others who. I don't think that's the case because there are others who have gotten it. Other than myself.
Oh, I see.
Other than myself sharing him, because of course they don't even have computers, so they can't even listen to the show. So the word of the book got around. The book has been received by Rahway, but he has not received his copy. I have an order number, and
all right. Well,
I can't reach no one. Customer service to even inquire about it. Everything's online, and by you switching to that other link, it's really complicated.
Go right back to producejustice.com, and we'll see to it that either directly or indirectly that this is corrected. Go back to producejustice.com and follow the instructions there and give that tracking number and all the information there. And we'll look into that immediately.
Okay, I'll keep trying.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Shayla.
All right.
Shahala.
Keep up the good work, Mr. Fuller. Keep up the good work. We love you.
And don't be a stranger, dear. Okay. Thank you very much. And hopefully we can get into that. And I see right now that somebody is already on that, so that's good. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. Let me go down here like I know him, Dollar Bill. Let me go down here to Bill. Bill, you are on with Mr. Fuller, and you can be heard all over the planet. Go ahead, sir.
Is this me, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller?
That would be you, sir. Go ahead.
Hey guys, yes, thank you, and good morning to both of you. Well, I just, I feel the same way about Mr. Fuller, and we all love Mr. Fuller. And once again, he has helped so many of us just get through this system with some type of just correct thinking. But my question is, and I keep on trying to drill home with this, and I'm maybe going to say this, you're asking this again, but I'm going to ask it a different way, is that we're at a point right now in an election time where they're asking for reparations. And I know Mr. Fuller has in his other shows said that reparations should not be any type of monetary form. And also he stated in other prior episodes that he does believe in getting the house, he does believe in travel, he does believe in education and health care. Those are like his four major things. But my question is today is, if given the house, how are we going to be able to pay to keep the house? If given the travel, how are we going to be able to rent the car, the hotels, pay the food? How are we supposed to do these things? So that's what I'm really focusing on, because I think the code is really great for thinking about how the system works. But I don't think the code alone, besides our will and what you define as wealth as so many things they can turn us, I believe that we must somehow control wealth and money to buy those things, to take care of the house, to go on the traveling, to pay for our health care, to do those things that money does.
Okay. Let me give Mr. Fuller.
So that's my question.
Okay, let's give Mr. Fuller a chance to address that. Mr. Fuller, please.
That has to be codified too. All of the details of reparations. Reparations just means you repair what the damage has been done. And then once you repair everything and bring it up to the standards that you have, then you must have a program for continuing the use of what you have repaired. So if you have abused people and things, you repair the people and the things that the people depend on that have been repaired, that have been damaged or destroyed. And just like anything, you keep it going. So a reparations job, according to the code, based on logic, would be endless until all of the repairs are completed and sustained and everything is running, just like repairing a car. So once you get the car repaired, then you say, does the car run? Because it's repaired now. Does the car do the duties that a car is supposed to do? Because you're going to use the car, not just look at it, because now that it's been repaired, and you're correct about that. But it's an ongoing thing. That's what I'm talking about, not a one-time thing. You keep everything going in all 9 areas of activity. The reparations are continuous for generations. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a complete job, not working up to a point and quit, like building a dam. I mean, and get it half built and say, okay, well, that's the funds that's been allotted, so there it is, and you can just work it out from there, just any kind of old way that you possibly can. But according to the plans that we have, we're just rolling them all up and walking off. No, that's an incomplete job. That's not a repair job. A repair job is complete. All of the damage that has been done, including the minds of black people, particularly in the northwestern hemisphere and in other parts of the world. The minds, the educational systems, all of this, the one we have now needs to be scrapped, really, and started from scratch, because there's a lot of dead weight in the educational system. A lot of nonsense is being taught that shouldn't have been carried on, plus a lot of falsehoods and the building up of heroes and all this, many of them slave owners and abusers of non-white people. You can scrap all of that. You can talk about it, but just briefly. Just list them. I mean, all the people who were slave owners, I mean, you can do that rather than talk about them, have a whole course on their great accomplishments and all like that. Don't take up black people's time with that kind of talk in any classroom. We're going to have 3 weeks talking about slave owners and their great accomplishments that's based on slavery. No. Rather than heroizing people, you just say what they did that was of some fundamental value, and then point out that they did it as a result and was able to do it as a result of having slaves, and then do that in about 5 or 6 days and then move on, rather than stretch it out 6 or 7 weeks. And then all these novels that people write and get them infused into the school system. You can just tell what the basic premises are, the lessons that you can learn from them, the things that you do and the things that you don't do or shouldn't do, and just move on. And you can shorten the educational system. I mean, a lot of what you call college time is taken up talking nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of stuff that never, you're just taking people's money and teaching nothing that they can use. So we need to overhaul everything. Now, I kind of sent it right there in this particular pause on education, but I'm talking about all areas of activity need to be repaired. And definitely the minds. Look at the raggedy minds that black people have right here in 2020. We have ragged minds. We need to tell the truth about that. And that's a result of the system of white supremacy. When white people criticize black people's behavior, they are looking at what they have produced. This is the best you can do? And call yourselves one round saying and then criticizing what you have made out of this raw material called black people, because that's what we are, raw material in the system of white supremacy. So whatever you're looking at is something that you produce. Drug addicts, prostitutes, you name it, everything. That's just all messed up. And then stand back and look at the ghetto and say, look at those people. They're crazy. They're wild. They're savages. You can't do nothing with them. Well, look who raised us, if you can call it raising. And that should be a part of the education system, too. The kind of toxic people we all have become, white and non-white.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a part of the repair job.
All righty, Bill. Thank you for your call, and do not be a stranger. Okay, let me do this. This comes from another Bill. He says, or William, excuse me, says this. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. He said, Mr. Fuller, I've heard you say in the past that there was a time many years ago during the creation of the code system in which you had become disillusioned with everything and everyone. I myself have also felt this way. When you become more outspoken about the code and espouse to it those around you, it seems that you begin to alienate yourself from the many people for many different reasons. As a result, they are in effect dismissing me as the messenger. You pour so much time, energy, and sincerity into studying works such as yours, Mr. Fuller, The Code Concept, Dr. Welsing's The ISIS Papers, among others, only to be dismissed by other people within seconds. This can be very painful. Discussion centered around codification seems to elicit a fight or flight response from people that I have never understood. Eventually, you become lonely and disillusioned with those around you. My question, Mr. Fuller, is this. How should those among us who are openly pursuing Mr. Fuller's codification system handle and regard those who are not pursuing codification? Are they still friends, or should they be avoided?
No, you don't avoid any people, nowhere on the planet. And the code goes directly to whatever it is that has to be done that needs doing. That's all it is. It's simple. And if you get lost, just go to page 271 and 272.
Yes.
That's it. Anytime you get lost in talking to someone, or you get confused, or you get frustrated, or you just want to walk off and say, I can't talk to nobody. And I think I know what people are talking about, but that's because we are trying to sell somebody the code, so to speak. And you don't do that. You find out where people's minds are right where they are right now. Because people are usually interested in whatever it is that they are doing at the moment, whether they are against the situation that they are in, or they're for it. But you go to page 271 and 272, and it says, what? You got 4 things there called wants. It's 4 wants, W-A-N-T-S, 4 questions that you raise that have to do with W-A-N-T-S, because all creatures want something. So you don't start talking to someone from where your mind is. You talk to people always from where their minds are right at the moment you're talking to them. And the 4 wants will help you lead into the correct way to have a conversation and not an argument. Part of the code says a black person should never have an argument with anybody. You should have a conversation. And how do you have a conversation? What's the difference between an argument and a conversation? An argument is designed to win an argument. A conversation is designed to reveal the truth and to have a constructive result in your dialogue. That's a conversation. You're going to produce a constructive result. Now, what's the mechanics for doing that? You find out what a person wants, because all creatures want something every minute. Every person on the planet, every alligator, every bird, every bear wants something every minute of every day that they are awake. No exceptions to that rule. So what you do is ask about a person's wants. What do you want to do? Of course, it's put in the code book. You ask yourself these questions first. Well, what you want to do, apparently, is talk to the other person about the code. So that's what you want to do. Why do you want to do it? Because you think that it will be helpful. That's the second question. How do you plan to do it? Well, you should have a plan based on what the code requires you to do to have a conversation and not an argument. You got to have a code for everything. It's nothing outside of a code. And a code is just something that every time you do it, it works. Every time. Otherwise, it's not a part of the code if it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so and then that fourth question is, what do you expect the result to be? Now, those are four questions that can be asked of anybody, anywhere, anytime. And don't break into the answer that the person gives. Listen to the answer. And that fourth question is really, that's really what you call a real, in big letters, bottom line question. What do you expect the constructive result to be of you doing what you want to do? And you're talking to a person, any person, and let them answer. And then that's how you lead into, well, if you got a plan for doing it, and in the back of your mind, I mean, you don't have to say it right away, you know that person is going to run in. If that person has color in his or her skin, they're going to run into the race problem anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to sell the race problem, ever, to anybody. You let them discover it by your questions. That's the technique.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Thanks for all who are listening. Those who are in the chat room, Transcendence in, Jacoby 2 is in. I want to say Twins in, but I'm probably messing up that. Thank you for being in the chat room and listening and for your calls. Listen here. I'm going to cue up my music here. We're going to take a little break here. And just to do this, you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with this show, just call 516-453-9921, and be sure, please, ma'am, please, sir, to give the call screener your name so that I can properly introduce you. That would be great. If you choose not to do that, then, of course, you could Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. And at some point in a episode, probably not today, I will eventually get to it if it's not dropped off. But I will get to it, and then I will inform you of the date and time that your Gmail is being answered by Mr. Fuller. All righty. With that being said, let's go to Jerry. Jerry, you are, wait a minute, let me buffer up here. You are now on with Mr. Fuller, and you can be heard worldwide. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I had a couple questions. I'm actually calling from a military location near Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I had a question about, first, Mr. Bob, I read a lot of different things online, and I see a lot of criticism with you as far as how you handle the show. And per Mr. Fuller's guidance, that kind of criticism is not constructive. I don't know you. This is my first time actually calling into the show. But I've done enough research to see how hard you work to get this message out. So to those people that's offering that type of criticism, that serves no constructive value. If we should be doing anything, it's calling in or texting in and letting you know if things are loud and clear, as opposed to trying to tear you down, because we have enough of that going on. That's just my 2 bit on that.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And my question to Mr. Fuller, if I can ask, it's about the COVID-19 that's going on. In the Oxford trial, they had participants between the ages of 15 or 18, and 1% of the volunteers were white. Roughly 5% were Asian, and less than 1% were black. What are the implications of such a seemingly biased study from Mr. Fuller's perspective as it relates to denying people's activity?
And you're saying about the percentage of people who are doing what?
The percentage was only white. It was 55, 18 to 55. It was a rough split of 50-50 between male and female. 91% of the volunteers were white for this study for a COVID vaccine. I should have put that in there. Fewer than 1% were black. What are the implications of that study, and what does that tell us in relation to racism, and how you've identified it throughout denying people's activities?
Well, we don't know until the results all come in, and who is handling the results. There's no way to know that. There's no way to know very much about COVID-19 as a whole until you see what the results were, and they're talking about where did it come from. They're still talking about what the disease is. And so it's lots of confusion out here. I know that I'm confused, so I'm just waiting. I'm just listening to everything that I hear. But the truth will come out if you keep looking for it. At some point, the truth will come out about everything. But to the extent that races have anything to do with it, you can't tell what they're doing or why they're doing it until after they have done whatever they're going to do, because they have the power to do it. And then you can make an assessment looking at the result. Always wait to see what the results of something is going to be, because people are going here, they're going there, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're saying all kinds of things and all kinds of perspectives. White people and black people, people all over the world are giving their perspective on what this disease is all about. But we can find out about the racial element only after the damage is done, and then make an assessment of the damage, and then see where this damage really came from, if there's any damages at all outside of what the races are doing, and being able to separate the two. What the white supremacists, where they're steering it, because the disease, some people say they invented the disease. We don't know that. I don't.
Right.
Some people say they didn't, steering it in such a way that it harms non-white people more than it harms anybody else. And that could be true. I don't know what the truth is. So anybody's guess definitely as good as mine. I don't know enough about it. I don't think anybody does who is of color.
Okay. All righty. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jerry, for your call. And don't be a stranger. Okay. Let's see here. 516-453-9921 is the number that you can call to get in contact with the show, and we hope that you do here. Go to the Gmail here while we have a moment. I had him up here, but then I dropped it. Okay, here it is. Okay, here's a question for you, Mr. Fuller. Comes from Nathan. Says this: Mr. Fuller, feminism is a medium for exercising racism, white supremacy, that is extremely damaging to men and families. What is your logical observation of the impact feminism has on non-white people?
Well, as far as the white supremacists are concerned, non-white females just come under the system of white supremacy. And that's it. No, it doesn't make any difference about the different terms that are used, because a lot of different people have different ideas of what feminism is. But the white supremacists say that non-white female is just a victim of white supremacy, a subject, somebody that you use for the convenience of the system of white supremacy, just like the males. No different. You just look at black people and say, these are people who are supposed to be dominated and mistreated for three things for the benefit of the white people of the world. And those three things are fun, glory, and material comfort. That's it. Now, different type of labels are handed out all kinds of ways, but it's basically the same format. It's just you look at a person's color, if you're a white supremacist, and say you're in the category to be eligible, definitely eligible, to be dominated and mistreated by anybody who is white, classified as white, in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, any time of day, any time of night, anywhere on the planet Earth, or anywhere in outer space. If you happen to be white and you see somebody who is non-white, that person who is non-white is to be dominated and mistreated, glory and material comfort of the person classified as white. It's called white supremacy. That's it. And it doesn't make any difference what type of terms you use to describe it, whether it's male or female. Just 2 words: domination and mistreatment. And what do they get out of it? Fun, glory, and material comfort. Real simple. So simple that most people think it's too simple. Most people think that. And they dismiss it. No, that's too simplistic. I mean, no, don't. That's all. That's what you're talking about? That's what, people like Neely Fuller are talking about? No, it's much more complicated than that. No, it isn't. It's just that simple, and that's where its power is. But they throw all kinds of words out there, like feminism and this type of ism. They got about 1,500 isms probably in the warehouse. They got them all over the place. But these are words that are used to confuse, rather.
Yes. Okay.
The issues.
Okay, this is what we're going to do here. Let me do this for the that was Jerry on the call. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Listen, this is before we go to our situation that we have Mr. Fuller speak on his book. From the chat room, KJJNI35 says this, Mr. Fuller, I know. Let Mr. Fuller know I received his answer favorably. I have all 3 books and never leave home without them. I will continue to learn. Okay, very, very good. I just let Mr. Fuller know that and the whole world know that. And since you mentioned books, that is a good segue to let me enter into this portion of today's program, which is when we have Mr. Fuller speak about his books. And Mr. Fuller, KJJNI35 mentioned the 3. As you speak, could you address that issue, please?
And what's the issue?
Well, it's not really an issue. Address your 3 publications. They were from the books.
Oh. the textbook for victims of white supremacy. You can
Yes.
go to Produce Justice, and you can get them. Now, that's the 2016 edition that I think is still available. And there is also the 1984 edition that is the original. And there's an in-between book put out in 2010, volume rather. That's an extension, really, of both books, both volumes rather. And it's all supposed to be the same book, but I couldn't. I'd like to have the 2016 edition and the Word Guide be in one binder, but the book would be too thick. Probably in the future I'll work that out. But it's the textbook for victims of white supremacy. They all have the same title because they are just suggestions about what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say, in order to do what? To replace the entire system of white supremacy with a new system that's never really been done anywhere on the planet called justice. The system of justice. Replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Justice meaning, the compensatory definition of justice, meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated in any area of activity, anywhere, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the ultimate objective of all of these volumes, and every page is in the volume. And for the victim of white supremacy, it's supposed to show you how to go about doing it on a daily basis as an individual person, on your job, wherever you happen to be, on the street, riding a bus, when you talk to people, when you interact with people, what to say, what not to say. It's all supposed to be a guide for that will lead up to that eventual result. But you can get this information by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com.
Okay.
And just follow the instructions.
Okay. Now, before we go to Everett, I'll get you in here, Everett. Earlier in this conversation, in this first hour, when I think her name was Shalala, she called and mentioned something about she was getting the book into, in this case, it was Rahway State Prison. I think that's in New Jersey. I think that's where that's at. But you mentioned that. Okay, it is. Okay, thank you. You mentioned that sometimes the book has problems in going into penal institutions for people who are incarcerated.
That's what I've heard, and sometimes it hasn't happened recently, but about 10 years ago, really, I got a couple of letters from the institutions themselves that may have been done away with by now.
Okay.
Because a lot of lawyers have contested under the First Amendment.
Okay.
Prisoners not receiving certain types of material.
Okay. Okay. But as far as you know, anybody that's in the greater confinement, as far as you know, can get the book then? Yes.
They can, as far as I know, as of now. I haven't heard any recent reports that has been held back by the officials at the greater concentration sites.
Okay. All righty. Let's do this. Let's move on to keep the show moving. Okay. Let's go to Everett. Everett, good morning and welcome to the show. You are on and can be heard worldwide. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. My question is, you said religion is a strong belief followed by action. Would you consider the system of justice a religion? And if so, is that your religion, Mr. Fuller?
Would I consider the religion, the word justice, a religion? That's the first question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, because in order to have justice, you have to really believe in it, and you have to back it up by action, which means in your interactions with people, you guarantee as best you can that no person is mistreated. That's how all people throughout the planet should interact with every other person. Try to the best of your ability guarantee that no one is mistreated. And the other is the guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Out of any group of people, a group of 10 people, you try to give the person who needs help the most constructive help first, and then work back from that person to the person who needs the least amount of help. And now you have justice throughout the entire planet. It's a formula that I think will work. It's never really been seriously tried because it's never really been seriously defined. I gave it that definition so you can measure it and always know whether or not you have it or you don't. Because the way the word justice is used now, they just say it's fair play, and they got all kind of definitions that don't make sense. Fair play, what does that mean? Fair means white. So you're associating justice with whiteness? The white supremacists do. So I think that's pretty specific. Now, what was the other question?
Is that your religion?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. Was that the end of your question? We seem to be stepping on each other, not on purpose, by the way, but there's something in the background there. But did you have another question before we let you go here?
Yes. Is that your religion, Mr. Fuller, which is justice?
Oh, no, that's not my religion because I'm trying to achieve that as part of my religion. So you actually have to be doing it. But I haven't produced justice. I'm trying to adopt a religion of justice that does not now exist. Because nobody guarantees that nobody's mistreated. Nobody's been able to pull that off. And nobody's guaranteed that the person that needs help the most is getting the most constructive help. It's millions of people all over the world right now. Everybody. Really. This is not a just world. Because of what? For sure. How can I say that with total conviction? Because you can't have a system of white supremacy and the practice of justice on the same planet at the same time. It is absolutely impossible. So that's a religion that I am trying to be instrumental in establishing, because no religion has guaranteed that justice is prevailing, because the religion of white supremacy is the strongest religion on the planet Earth here in the year 2020. And it does not allow any so-called religion or anything that people say is a bona fide religion to function, period, when you have the system of white supremacy as being the only real religion in 2020 that's functioning on the planet, that guarantees that people will be mistreated, because you can't have white supremacy and any other form of religion that practices justice on the same planet at the same time. It is absolutely impossible. You have to get rid of the system of white supremacy.
Okay. All righty. Everett, thank you for your call, and please do not be a stranger. Brother Ben, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get to you on the other side of the call, or the other side of the hour, because this question is right in line with what Mr. Fuller has just talked about from astrology. It says this, Mr. Fuller, can you add the most evil whenever you say that white supremacy is the most powerful system ever invented in the known universe, please? Genius is one thing. Evil genius is another. Mr. Fuller, address that, please, sir.
Yes, it's the evil genius, the system of white supremacy, if that's the question. Is the system of white supremacy evil genius? Yes. That's the answer. Any other questions?
No, he just on that. He said the most powerful, and he wanted you to add you said it's the most powerful one. He wanted you to add also the most evil. That's what he's saying. Mm-hmm.
Yes. If you want to use that term, evil, it's certainly not a non-evil. It's designed to mistreat people. That's evil. Mistreating people is evil. Period. Mistreating people is evil. So if you're an evil genius mistreating people, and you're a genius at it, whatever that means, then so be it. It's evil. You can put any kind of word in front of it. Evil is evil.
Yeah.
Genius evil, sloppy evil, don't know what you're doing evil, know what you're doing evil. Evil is evil. It means you're getting an incorrect result from what you're doing. Somebody's being mistreated. Somebody's not getting the help that they need. That's evil.
That's evil. All righty. We've come just about to the end of the first hour here on the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. He is entertaining your questions right now and addressing I won't really want to say your issues, but whatever your concerns are, he's addressing them using the codified manner. Now, if you would like to get in contact with the show, you know how to do that. Just dial up 516-453-9921 and be sure to hit the number 1 button so that the call screener can get your name so that I can pronounce it. If I don't mess it up, I'd like to properly pronounce your name. Or you can do this. You can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, and I will effort to get it on, but probably will not. But when we do, or when I do, or when they give it to me, then I will read it and let you know the date and the time that your Gmail will be read. Thank you for listening. Thank you for those in the chat room. Vorp is in. Thank you, along with 7 others. That's very, very good. And since we are now just about at the top of the hour, let me just break in by saying this all over again. You are now listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, and for those of you that are new to the show, because we do have new people all the time that come in, call this number, 516-453-9921, and press the number 1 button. Or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. I will try to say that throughout the show. With that being said, make sure again that you give the call screener your name, because I'm coming up here with a little blank action here. Okay, let's go right here to Ben, I'm efforting to get you on here, and let's see here. Okay, Ben, you are live. You can be heard worldwide. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, guys. So my question is first a quick VGQ, and then followed by a quick question. I think part of the reason why Mr. Fuller's work is so admirable is because Mr. Fuller is his work is focused on logic. You know, it seems like most of the methods and all of the work the non-white people in the past has received from people who actually try to solve this race issue. There were a lot of emotional, components to the behavior, our resistance. Mr. Fuller is saying, no, don't use emotion in such a way to make decisions. Emotion can be your guide, but logic should be your focus. And I think it's powerful because through logic that we can actually have answers to questions, and that those answers can lead us to the truth. And my quick question for Mr. Fuller is, have you, Mr. Fuller, in the past, did you had a chance to see Malcolm X in person or Elijah Muhammad in person? Because I know you kind of came up during those days. I just wanted to kind of know, and I think the audience too would like to know. Thank you.
Yes, I've heard them speak in person, both Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. Elijah Muhammad on, I think, about 3 occasions, and Malcolm X on 1.
Okay.
Now, did that have a profound impact on you, having the chance to hear those 2 individuals in person? What impact did it have on you?
Well, not when I heard them speak at the time, because I had already read some of their works, with the works of Elijah Muhammad, and I'd also heard other ministers in the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad's son at the time, I'd heard him speak long before I heard the messenger, they called him, Elijah Muhammad, or Malcolm X. I just heard about Malcolm X. This is in the mid-1950s. But I heard a couple of other ministers of the Nation of Islam, and they had an impact, gave some perspectives that I hadn't heard before. And all of the people, really, when people ask me, the people who influenced me to think the way that I do, I say, my goodness, the list just goes on and on and on, including fictional movies, even detective novels, Raymond Chandler's works that I no longer read anymore, mystery books. I used to read a lot of them. Ellery Queen, Earl Stanley Gardner, James M. Cain, Dashiell Hammett. I used to read mystery novels. Why? Because they were very popular at the time. But they had an impact on me, certain parts of them, because of what I was looking for. And what was I looking for? Anything that sounded like it was halfway realistic. That's what I've always tried to focus on. I believe in realism. And anything that sounds like is realistic or could be realistic. And that's mostly the way that my mind works, and it always has. The works of Mark Twain, particularly Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Mm-hmm. And even that expression, the character in Huckleberry Finn, Jim, and, the N-word was his first name. the N-word was Jim's first name in the novel Huckleberry Finn. That's what they called him. And his first name was the N-word. The second name was Jim. But I read that book about 12 times, during the summer months when I was in my early teens, I think. Or before I was in my early teens, maybe.
Okay.
But I learned it had an impact on the way that I thought, the way that I see the world, even today. And different movies have had the same impact.
All righty. Ben, thank you for your call, Ben, and do not be a stranger. This is going back to the first hour, Mr. Fuller, when the lady had called about the person that was in greater confinement. One of the callers that we had, Jerry, which you answered his question, he was very pleased with that. He also said this, that he has worked as a corrections officer years ago, and he said that certain forms of communication aren't allowed in the facilities. In fact, he says that mail is opened and inspected. The code is a very powerful guide because of its content and its ability to influence thinking and action. So I guess they would open that up and do that. I don't know if they don't want them to think or want them to think or what, but they're in there and they do have time to think. Let me do this. iTest says this, Mr. Fuller, before I get to Imani and I think it's Dalen. Mr. Fuller, can you explain in detail why you refer to the black family as survival units? Mr. Fuller, I know that black males the world over are being effeminized by by this racist system. I also notice that black females are adapting the feminist doctrine and becoming more masculine. Mr. Fuller, what is the white supremacist endgame for black feminists specifically?
Confusion. The strength of the white supremacists, racist man and racist woman of this entire planet, is to go among non-white people and immediately start causing what? Something that they know is extremely powerful in the conquest of people. And that is what? Confusion. Say one thing, mean another. Cause all kinds of contradictions. Just as many as they can think of. And they have just about really completed the first phase of it, I say. First or second phase. I don't know what phases I would really call them in. In the area of sex, according to the code, they intend to cause maximum confusion among the non-white people of this entire planet. And they are being so far extremely successful at doing so in record time because many black people have embraced it, this confusion of sexuality, turning every black female, every female of color into a masculine entity of some type or whatever. Just something other than what she's designated as being. And getting to say that your mind is not compatible with your body. So make your body follow where your mind is, and I will control your mind. And that's where they're taking it. And they're doing the same thing with the black male. The black male now is, to the extent that the white supremacists have anything to do with it, with the section that they have assigned to deal with non-white people sexually, they are on a huge assignment that they are carrying out with maximum efficiency and with plenty of financing behind it. And that is, if the black male will pucker up his lips and raise his anus for the reception of phalluses and make himself the new substitute vaginas for the whole world. This is where they're taking the black male. Get out there, boy. Pucker up those lips. That's right. Stick them out there. I got something for you. Now raise your behind. Drop them pants. Raise up that behind and let me put something in it. Now, you are the new world-class substitute vaginas. Your lips and your hips. And I will pay you huge sums of money to recruit as many other people as you possibly can in support of this activity. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are buying into it, particularly huge numbers of black intellectuals. See, the white supremacists is extremely shrewd. And they say this is an improvement. This is what you've been fighting for. All these years, all the lynchings and the sacrifice. This is it. This is what it is. Puck up them lips. Stick them out there. Looking and walk around, glassy-eyed, looking for a phallus. What is it for? Racial population tailoring. That's what it's all about. We're going to take those black females, have them wrap themselves around each other, and they will die on battlefronts in combat boots. Because we're going to need a lot of people as cannon fodder. And if you get black females to act like males and put them together on battlefronts all over the world, you can save your alpha white male for other pursuits in making the system of white supremacy stronger than it's ever been. That's what it's all about, folks. Either I'm telling the truth or I'm not. This is the white supremacist scheme, and they should never be forgiven for this. See, that's why a lot of them out here saying we support black people in this, we support black people in that. And they will. If they can get black people's sexuality turned inside out, upside down, scattered all over the place, scatter sexuality. Sexuality has been a very deep thorn in the sides and all over the system of white supremacy. Black sexuality has been a threat. So if they abolish that, they don't have to mess us up in any other ways, because we'll be messed up in every other way, in all the other areas of activity. But don't let black people do anything that makes sense when it comes to sex, including the male-female interaction, which we will continue to mess that up.
Yes.
As long as we are white supremacists.
Okay. Let's go to the phone lines here. And Imani, let me see if I can get you up here. Okay, there we go. You are heard worldwide. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller.
Yes. Can you, Mr. Fuller, briefly talk on the cliche that is becoming very, very popular called black-on-black crime, and how that subject comes up when non-white people who are racially classified as black are attempting to speak on and or apply action to countering the system of racism and white supremacy?
Yes, sir. Just think of all black people on the planet as being prisoners of war, with the emphasis on prisoner, because we're already in a war. They declared war on black people at the beginning of white supremacy. White supremacy is war. So all of the non-white people on the planet are in the prison system. That's why the textbook calls, when they put you into a place to call a prison cell, that's what you call greater confinement, because you're already confined being out here in the big wide world. Okay, you're not free. The white supremacists determine where non-white people can go and what they can do and what they better not do. So, what they are doing is confining all of the non-white people, and then everything else is easy to do, and they have us being prisoners, so we act like prisoners. Prisoners prey on each other. They can't do anything about the guards. They don't know what to do. They know that they're in prison. They know that they're at a disadvantage, so they don't even think about that, because they know that they lose if they go up against the system. You're in the prison. You're not outside the prison. So what do? They prey on each other like prisoners do. They look forward to doing things against each other. They make little weapons among themselves, or whatever ones that they can smuggle in order to do what? In order to use against each other. So that's all that is, so-called black-on-black crime. And this will continue as long as you have the system of white supremacy. It will continue. And if the prisoners get too far out of line in killing each other in the prison yard or in the cells, then the white supremacists come in and knock all their heads together, because you're disturbing the routine of the prison. You got too far out of hand, killing each other. And the young black people are grooming themselves right now to do what? Looking forward to, before they get killed themselves, killing each other, their schoolmates. I mean, this is what they're going to be doing, the way everything is set up. They're going to be confined to what you call the ghetto, the black side of town, the hood as we call it. And so just like prisoners anywhere, they act like prisoners, prey on each other out of their despair that they can't do anything about the big picture. The compensatory code is designed to get us out of that type of thinking and have us to dismantle this prison system called the system of white supremacy and replace it with a system of justice. That's what the textbook is supposed to help us do.
All righty. Yamani, thank you so much, sir, for the call. And again, don't be a stranger. Continuing on the phone lines, let's go to, hopefully I am pronouncing it correctly. Let's see, Dalen. Dalen, you're on with Mr. Fuller, and you can be heard worldwide.
Hi. Good morning, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby.
Good morning,
I
sir.
have one quick question. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I have one quick question piggybacking on the confusion, the mass confusion that's going on in the entire world, really, and all the people that are of color. So, I can, let's see how to word this. So, let's see, sorry. I'm a relatively young guy, 22 years old. I can see wholeheartedly the validity of what you're doing, and I can respect it, but I'm somebody who's I don't have the book yet, and I'm trying to just understand. I can understand when I can tell when I read it, I'll be able to go about this life in a way that can be efficient. But my question is, how would I be able to get my friends, get my family, get everybody else of color kind of on track with what you were saying? Because I know due to all the mass confusion that's going on, if I was to go to them with something like this, I would receive a lot of flack and a lot of, negativity. So I'm just wondering, how can I go about, spreading this knowledge in a way that will be effective and actually bringing change to our community? Thank you.
Thank you, Dalen. Mr. Fuller?
Yes, the procedure is stay in the question lane. Stay away from making statements. Don't try to dictate or don't try to instruct people as to what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing. Ask them what they want to do. I talked about this in the first hour. And it's just 4 things. Keep those in mind. What is it you want to do? You ask anybody that you talk to, particularly any black person, not just quote unquote family members, any black person, tell me what you want to do. Because everybody has wants. So you approach people with questions. Stay in the question lane. Stay away from making statements. Don't sound like you're preaching to someone, because that will be resisted. I'm going to tell you that right now. People don't want to hear it. They're tired of hearing sermons that go nowhere, okay? So they'll say, you ask people, what do they want to do? People usually want to talk about what they want to do. People will wear you out talking about what they want to do. So you ask them, what do you want to do? Question number 1. Number 2, why do you want to do it? This thing that you want to do, why is it you want to do it? And don't interfere with their answers. Don't argue about it. Just listen. And ask them, why do they want to do what they want to do? Because they should know why they want to do what they want to do. All right? Then number 3, how do you plan to do this thing that you want to do? Do you have a plan? Because you should have a plan. I'm just ad-libbing now, but you stick to the question. How do you plan to do this thing or these things that you want to do? And then that 4th question, which is I put a star by that question, and that is, what do you expect the constructive result to be of you doing what you want to do? And then let them answer. Now, you might say, well, what's that got to do with fighting racism? It's going to lead to that. Because when they start talking about all these things they want to do, they're going to run smack into racism if it's anything of constructive value. And even if it's something that is non-constructive value, they're going to have to be dealing with the white supremacists. But see, you already know that, but you don't have to say that. You just wait. And then you just keep asking questions. You say, now, this plan that you got, you can just take number 3 of what you want to do. You said you're going to go and talk to who? Because chances are they're going to talk to somebody to carry out their plan. So you just ask, who is this person you're going to talk to? You say, well, I'm going to need finance for what I got to do. I'm just giving this as an example. And so I'm going to talk to somebody in the bank. Oh, you're going to talk to somebody in the bank? See, you keep staying in the question lane. And say, okay, why are you going to talk to somebody in the bank? Oh, because I'm going to need some money. Oh, you're going to need some money. All right. Now, who is this somebody in a bank who you are going to talk to that you are going to get some money from? Okay? Just stay in the question lane. They are going to lead you to where you want them to go. That's the way that works. That's the yin and yang of compensatory constructive communication. Everything that you say should be in the form of a question. And if you stay in that question lane and by their answers, it's going to take everybody right where they should be. Not where everybody wants to be. But in this system of white supremacy, that's guaranteed to take everybody right where they should be. And if you don't believe it, try it. In fact, the code says, don't believe nothing Neely Fuller says. Try it and see where it takes you. But stay in that question lane. It's going to lead to the system of white supremacy anyway. So you don't have to mention nothing about race at all when you start a conversation with anybody. You just start asking questions. And the questions and answers will take everybody right into that brick wall called the system of white supremacy. That's guaranteed.
All righty. Thank you very, very, very much, Dalen. And don't be a stranger to the program. Okay. Next on the menu is Pam. Let's see here, Pam, if I can get you in. There we go. Pam, you're on. You can be heard worldwide. Go ahead, Pam.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, and good morning, Mr. Bobby.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've had many family members and relatives, some deceased, who've been crushed mentally, emotionally, and spiritually under this, I call a soul-crushing system of racism and white supremacy. Some formally have been diagnosed with a mental illness and unsuccessfully treated with whatever the latest medications because they have no cures. All were unable to survive this harsh mistreatment. These individuals were considered weak and they could not make it in this evil worldwide system. Mr. Fuller, what is your codified observation of people who become mentally ill? And what can a person who cares for them constructively do to help them?
Tell them the truth as best you possibly can about the world that they're in. If you know what the truth is. Once you find it out, the truth in each area of activity, just tell the truth to the best of your ability. Because the white supremacists... Hello?
That's why some of them are in the state they're in. Because of this, they couldn't handle the way the world really is.
I know, but you have to go with the truth regardless. Because the system of white supremacy puts out falsehood, and that causes confusion. And confusion is what causes insanity. Confusion is insanity. Anytime you're confused, you're insane. So the system of white supremacy has made everybody insane. The white supremacists themselves are insane because the whole concept and practice of racism is insane. So when they say that they're trying to get you to be sane, there's no way to do that in the system of white supremacy. So all people on this planet in the year 2020 in the system of white supremacy are just as crazy as they can be. All of the people who are supposed to be telling everybody else how to be sane are insane themselves. Why? Because the standard for sanity is incorrect. You can't have sanity and white supremacy in the same universe at the same time. That is impossible. We don't know what sanity is. All of the standards, if they have standards saying you used to be insane, but you are now sane. Everybody who says that is not telling the truth. Now, that statement that I made is either true or false. Everybody who says that you have sane people in the system of white supremacy is not telling the truth. That is absolutely impossible. Why? Because the system of white supremacy itself is an insane system. and everything that flows from it is just as crazy as it can.
All
Thank
right,
you,
Pamela.
Fuller.
All right, Pam. Thank you, and don't be a stranger. Okay, guess what? Let me cue that music up here so we can do this thing here. This is our last break of the day. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, just call 516-453-9921. Be sure to press the number 1 button, and you will go to the first, at the head of the line. Or you can Gmail me at the numeral number 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And eventually I will read your Gmail, eventually. Okay, moving on with the program. We started out the program, and some have been new. Mr. Fuller explained his statement that he made back in 1971. He repeats it on every show that he and I have done together. It is simply this. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. We started out with that today, Mr. Fuller, and it's that word that people are having problems with, and that word in this statement is everything. For those that have just tuned in or are tuning in, or even for the young man, Dalen, and thank you, Dalen, for tuning in. Thank you. Can you explain that everything that you understand will only confuse you?
Because the system of white supremacy is built, the glue that holds it together is to have mass confusion in the minds of their victims. So the victims of white supremacy, black people, non-white people, are confused. They're easily dominated, because anybody that you can confuse, you can dominate. That's just a law of the universe. And the white supremacists know that we'll do this thing called racism, and we'll have all kinds of words that we will use to confuse them about what we are doing, when really all we're really doing is practicing white supremacy. But we'll have all kinds of words like democracy and republicanism and communism and capitalism and socialism. We'll have thousands of words, and we'll place these words strategically so that we will do what? Keep our victims confused, when really all this whole thing is about, everything that we do in every area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, when we interact with the people of color of this world, we will do everything that we can think of to keep them what? Confused in all of these 9 areas of activity. Economic confusion, educational confusion, legal confusion, political confusion, sexual confusion, all over the place. Religious confusion, all over the place. And we will be masters of doing that through the use of words. And then we'll just sit back and put our feet on the desk and watch the show that we have produced. It's an excellent production, because the glue that holds the system of white supremacy together, which is designed to dominate and mistreat people of color, is held together by mass confusion. So that's what that statement means.
Okay.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you.
All right.
That's an absolute.
That's an absolute. Okay, there you have it. Okay, got to get this in order here. Let's do Alpha the first. Then we'll go to Transcendent, and then Imani, you're third on the list here. Recently, Mr. Fuller, the state of Mississippi retired its flag, the Confederate flag, on June the 30th. Now, the state of Mississippi has decided to let black people design a new flag, one that is not symbolic of racism, white supremacy. Question. On page 147 of the original textbook for victims of racism, white supremacy, the code makes a suggestion about the action/subject of praise. That's in paragraph 3. Many black people are praising the actions of creating a new Mississippi state flag that is not symbolic of racism, white supremacy. Mr. Fuller, can you explain the concept of the code's position on the topic of praise in reference to the new state flag created by black people? I ask this because Dr. Welsing talked about the importance of understanding symbols under the system of white supremacy. I am not sure if the creation of a new flag by black people is a, quote, constructive, end of quote, symbol under the system of racism, white supremacy. Thank you.
Well, a flag, I guess, is a form of speech. So the code does not allow me to criticize anything that black people say about race, racism, or counter-racism. That's in the textbook. That's a part of the code. I cannot say anything other than they say what they said. I'm not permitted to go any further than that, according to the code. And the reason for it is it generates arguments. And part of the code is that no black person should have an argument with another black person about anything ever. And that's one of the ways we can start having that come to reality. And that is simply when you're asked to comment on something that another black person is saying, underline, saying about race, racism, and our counter-racism, every black person on the planet should say, well, he said what he said, whatever black person said it, or she said what she said. If it's a female black person, you just simply say, well, she said what she said. Now, if you want further information on what she said, check with her, because I'm prohibited from saying anything else. And I started doing that some years ago, and it, as a test run before it goes into the code, and I found that always works.
Mm-hmm.
Black people, anything that black people say, things that you would bite your tongue, before you said it. And grit your teeth or whatever, or close your eyes and say, my goodness, I can't stand to hear that. But stifle it and if you are asked to comment on anything that a black person says, anything about race, racism, or counter-racism, you just simply say, he said what he said, or she said what she said. And if you want any other information, if the person keeps persisting when you making a comment, you say, well, you have to talk to them about that. Because all I'm permitted to say is, he said what he said. Check with him about what he meant.
Okay. With that being said, and I knew this was going to happen, anytime that you make a statement about the the phallus or the female vagina, or as you mentioned here, the puckering up in the behind. Transcendence said this. In the answer section on page 32, and that's on page 32 of the revised expanded edition, the code states what can you do as an individual non-white person about racial showcasing confusion. You, Mr. Fuller, suggest that the unchosen person not allow fear, frustration, anger, disgust, jealousy, or confusion to tempt you into saying or doing harm to the chosen. What is the codified response to say to the white person and or chosen non-white person when they berate the non-chosen black person for not being able to have money to sustain themselves in this system?
What do I say about black people who don't have money to sustain themselves?
It says, what is the codified response to say to the white person and or chosen non-white person when they berate the non-chosen black person for not being able to have money to sustain themselves in this system? What they want to know? What do you say?
Oh, that's
what is the codified response?
The white supremacists are in charge of all money that's worth anything on this planet. So you don't berate a non-white person for not having money. Money comes from the white supremacists. They run the prison system. They run the monetary system. They run it all. Not some of it. They're in charge of all of it. Any money that's worth anything on the planet Earth has to be authorized by the white supremacists. Otherwise, it's not money. So if a person doesn't have money, any person, that's the white supremacists' fault. If the white supremacists require everybody to have money in order to sustain themselves in any area of activity, in order to do anything, if I understand the question, it's the white supremacists are to blame for people not having money because they're in charge of money. Nobody else is in charge but the white supremacists. The only money that anybody cares about on this planet is money that the white supremacists have their pictures on or is authorized by them to have somebody's picture on. That's the only money that's worth anything. And the most important money in the world are the bodies and minds of black people. That's money in the system of white supremacy. That's real money. If you've got the bodies and the minds of black people of this planet, you are wealthy beyond belief. The white supremacists have them, the bodies and the minds.
Okay. All righty. This is what we're going to do, Mr. Fuller. I have 2 telephone calls here, so we're going to get those. But before I do that, can you briefly speak about your book?
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Now, what is the book designed to do, intended to do? I say to solve the race problem. I say anybody who's writing any kind of book about people on the planet in 2020 should have in mind, does this book help to solve the race problem? Or does this book, if you follow the instructions in it, actually solve the race problem? Not just talk about it, but actually solve it. Well, I wrote this book with the intention of actually solving it. How you can go about doing it. and how the individual person who reads and picks and chooses those things that make sense to him and her, him or her. That's in the book. That's how it's supposed to be used. You don't do anything that doesn't make sense to you, because that doesn't make sense, to do something that doesn't make sense to you. It's got to make sense to you. And when you do it, it's supposed to work. And if you do it, if enough people do it as individual persons, because the book is designed for the individual victim of white supremacy. If enough people do it, theoretically, the system of white supremacy will be out of business, because the book is supposed to be designed as a book of thought, what to think, how to think about things, different ways of thinking about the same thing, how to speak, how do you talk to people, things you say, things you don't say, and what to do, things that you do, things that you don't do, in all areas of activity, and the entire system of white supremacy will collapse if the instructions are followed that are in the book. That's the theory. Now, has that been proven? No, because the system of white supremacy is still here. But this is what I have written the book with the intention of doing. If I leave this planet without the book doing that, I have failed in what I started out to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get the book by going to producejustice.com.
Okay.
And like I said, just pick and choose any page, just turn any page, and see if what you're looking at makes sense about what you should say, what you should do, or what you should not do or say. That's all it is. Everything is, all problem solving is about doing and saying. The race problem is the biggest problem on the planet. Somebody should know what to do and say about it in order to have it disappear and a system of justice take its place. That's the idea.
Yes, sir. Okay. ProduceJustice.com.
ProduceJustice.com. Go to that website.
Yes. All right, let's do this. Looks like, Imani, you're back for a second slice of the action. Go ahead, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Fuller, can you briefly speak on the popular term blacks and Jews? I believe I've heard you say in the past that it doesn't make any sense, and I agree. Could you speak on the term briefly?
Because that's all that I had to say about it. It's really, I don't know what else to say. But I have said that there's no way for me to use those words, those three words in combination and make any sense at all. I haven't found out a way to in the stretching my imagination to have any idea of what people are talking about. Blacks and Jews, blacks and Jews, and you're going to have a discussion using that type of title? How can you make any kind of sense in that discussion at all? I don't see it. I can see Christians and Jews, Protestants and Catholics. I can see Jehovah's Witnesses and some tribal religion of tribe in Indonesia or someplace. But blacks and Jews, how can anybody using that title have a discussion using that title? And what would be the discussion about? What would they be talking about? In order to achieve what? It makes no sense. I have seen it. I've seen book covers with that type of title on it. And I say, I'm not going to even bother to look in there because I got so many other books in front. It's not that I'm rejecting the book, but I'm just saying that's not a priority because I think it's impossible to make sense out of having a title like that of a book, or that's going to be a discussion at a seminar, and make sense at all. I don't think it can be done by anybody.
Okay. All right, Brother Imani, thank you for your call again. And you weren't a stranger. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuller, you make that statement that you just made. Now, this is my VGQ on that. I think they went over about 90% of people's heads. I don't think they understood what you said, but with some critical, codified thinking, they will hear exactly what you said. But they got to think about that. Okay, let's go here. Rasul, you're on with Mr. Fuller, and you can be heard worldwide. Go ahead, please, sir.
Okay, you said Rasul?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, how you doing? This is your friend Rasul Amenhotep. I want to tell you all I love your show. I have a question, but I want to make a comment briefly on the what you just talked about, the blacks and Jews. First of all, I found that under the system of white supremacy, world domination, Jews are just a bigger part of it as all the rest of the Europeans. And the sad part about it is too many of us are becoming completely confused about who our enemies actually are. And we must understand that, first of all, the Jews played just as much a part in our oppression, our enslavement, if not a greater part or the massive part, than any other Caucasian ethnicity or Caucasian race or however they want to form themselves, from Irish, Italian, whatever the case may be. But without people actually knowing that we ourselves, the melanated individuals, are the originals of everything on this earth, including the so-called Jews, which is really a misnomer going back to the Hebrews. Now, with that being said, Mr. Fuller, I understand, that white supremacy, and being that I've read your book, and I understand that white supremacy, world racism, domination has a very profound effect on the mentalities, has even found some information where it's even altered the DNA of African people, of Kemetic people, Nubian people here in America, the ones that people all over the world actually has been affected by this. And I understand that it causes a severe mental deficiency. Some of us realize it and recognize it, and a lot of us don't. Can you please give the people some pointers on what we can do to, first of all, acknowledge it, and then I know the book gives information, but on how to acknowledge it and then deal with it. But could you please give us, in layman terms, basically, I'm asking. If you could do that for me, so I'd really appreciate it.
How to acknowledge what? Discussions about religion?
No. That part of the religion plays in racism, white supremacy. But I'm saying the mental illness or the mental deficiencies or the mental conflicts that has developed within us as a people. Some of us realize it and recognize it, and some of us don't. And, that's why I find like a lot of times I see black people that I've even tried to discuss issues with want to attack me. I'm like, that's the result of your sickness. I ain't sick and this and this and that. They're in a state of denial or just a state of not wanting to acknowledge it. So I was wondering if you could give some pointers on what we can do to first acknowledge that this is actually happening to us, and then some remedies for the situation.
Acknowledge what is happening to us within the context of what?
White supremacy, world racism, and domination.
Oh, well, that's what the entire book is for.
Yes, sir. And I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
That's what I'm saying. People, that's why I recommend that people get the book, because that's why I wrote the book. I said, for years I was just saying, I'm doing all this talking, but nothing is coming together in a way that people understand what I'm saying. And so I'm going to try to, I've written a whole bunch of stuff down. I'm going to take all this stuff that I've written down and try to collate it in some kind of way. And then that's why I wrote a book. And that's why I direct people to the book, because the book itself says this thing is huge. You're talking about an entire world government. So you have to, just piece it together piece by piece and present it in a book form, maybe, and then get on the radio or whatever like I am now and try to direct people to the concept about the situation that we're in, the concept and the practice of white supremacy, and talk about and give some instructions or suggestions about what to do about it that will work. And that's it. So I wrote a book for that purpose in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And that just about covers everything. And I tell people, if you do all the correct things in all 9 of those areas of activity, the problem should be solved. That's the concept. That's why I call it the compensatory counter-racist concept.
Okay, thank you, Rasul. I got to go. Got one more call
sir.
here.
I just want to make one more point, sir, please. Just one quick point, and that is, Mr. Fuller, I absolutely agree with you, and I want to recommend that book to everyone. I've had the book before. I've ordered it again. Thank you so much for your contribution, and please, sir, by all means, keep up the good work in the name of the ancestors. Thank you so much, brother.
All righty. Thank you, Rasul. Don't be a stranger. Last call. David, you got about 3 minutes. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, go ahead, David. You can be heard.
Okay, good morning. I want to speak about maximum compensatory justice when the victims of racism and white supremacy can no longer take living among racist man and racist woman. My question is, Mr. Fuller, I've often heard, and I want you to say if you've heard this before or if you agree with this, that the racist man and racist woman only understand 2 languages, one being economic deprivation, which caused them to leave Europe and also to explore the world, and also violence, which they seem to be the most efficient at. And I'll take my question offline. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David. Mr. Fuller?
Was that a question?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he wanted you to address. David, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Go ahead, David.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, my question was, Mr. Fuller, do you agree that the only 2 forms of protest or language that the white supremacists understand is economic deprivation and direct violence, which they're so good at?
No, they understand anything that they understand, and they try to understand all things. That's how they are so dominant, because they understand more than anybody else on the planet about all things, the things that are in the universe itself. They understand more about it than anybody. That's why they can dominate all of the non-white peoples of the planet. So it's just a matter of you understanding that they do understand these things, and that you gain as much understanding as you can about everything that they understand. And that's it. It's called being educated. They're the most educated people on the planet. Uneducated people are people who don't know how things work, how to get things done. They can't dominate anybody. So the white supremacists study everything. And then they look at black people and see to it that black people don't study anything except in everything that doesn't make sense. Okay. We worship things that don't make sense. They have trained us that way.
I am sorry, but we are running out of time. In fact, we've run out of time. Thank you, callers. Thank you for listening. Thank you, chat room people. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Everything has been lovely. We will see you next week, and hopefully we'll try to do better. All righty. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.